Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you and with Sherry for maybe second or third time here with us in our webinars. Sherry is a professor and an associate director of research in Manchester University. She's also a trainer here in Cambridge Finance in our AI application for real estate course. So it's a pleasure to be here, Sherry, and this webinar is yours.
All right, thank you, Philip. And hello, everyone. Welcome here to this webinar. So today I just want to briefly show you what we can do with AI in real estate risk management. So I'll just share the screen uh, with my slide. I hope everyone can see it. All right. So without any further ado, let's get started. So welcome everyone to this webinar. And my name is Yishuang Xu, and I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Manchester. And we are going to have a look at how the AI is transforming our way of assessing and managing the risk in real estate sector. So today we hope, we're quite ambitious, hope to cover all these different topics to see the challenges in traditional risk asset management, risk management, see what kind of solution AI can provide. And I will give you a practical demonstration on a very small case that how we can use AI. Of course, there are various of applications that you can utilize in future. And then we'll have a look at the how the future will be look like. But of course, in this field, it's developed really, really fast. So maybe in the very near future, what we want will become reality already. And don't forget, we have to consider some issues as well in using AI. And then we'll leave some time, hopefully, for question and answers. Okay. So before getting into it, I just want to address that why it's so important to understand how to use AI in real estate because this industry is very traditional, I'd say. So usually we don't make a lot of changes. But right now we are facing quite complex world and asset market as well. So we are facing the impacts from climate change, the volatility of the economy, the shift and changes of the regulations, policy, and urban dynamics as well. So the traditional risk management approaches still very fundamental, very functional, but are increasingly not enough in capturing the different kind of risk that real estate asset is facing. So that is why I'm listing the challenges here. So real estate is a tangible asset. So we are facing some tangible risk in the real world and also is sitting in the financial market. That is why we are also looking at some not tangible risk, but we also need to evaluate them. So traditionally, there are some key categories for the risk in real estate. For example, the market risk, real estate value fluctuations, demand and supply imbalance, interest rate, and etc. And credit risk, which is very important. For example, the tenant default risk, financing challenges, cash flow disruptions, and etc. And on the operational side, we also may face some issues and take some risk. For example, there can be issues in property management, maybe some increased or uncontrollable costs in the maintenance and vacancy rate, etc. And there are some emerging risks as well. For example, the environmental risk. We have environmental assessment before in the past already, but more recently, we are facing more and more impact from climate change, natural disaster, extreme climate, and etc. So that we have to figure out a way to assess this kind of risk and try to face it, try to mitigate them. And together with the environmental risk, we are facing some regulatory changes and we need to be compliant with them. So that also rise up risk. And in terms of the regulation, the zoning or the planning controls, the tax policy, and etc. These are all the different kinds of risk that in real estate industry. So of course, we have already developed a traditional approach to assess all these risks and try to manage them. But the traditional risk management relies heavily on what has already happened. We relied on historical data analysis, some models, but quite static, and try to predict, but usually it's very difficult to make the prediction. And there are some challenges here we actually may encounter already in our practice. For example, the data is very fragmented, the information scattered across different sources in multiple formats. So we have to put them in one quantifiable format. And also, in a way, it's very reactive nature. So we actually can identify the risks after they've materialized, but we can't really notice them before that. And also, it's quite difficult to forecast the complex and interconnected risk. For example, they might affect each other. And by doing the manual work or manual process of managing the risk or assessing the risk is a little bit difficult to scale. So especially if the portfolio is big, and it also there might be some bias because it's human judgment, and some data might be qualitative, so there might be subjective. So these are the changes or challenges or limitations of the traditional approach. And let's have a look at what AI can help us, or the AI solutions can help us to make a big change in real estate risk management. So when we are talking about AI, usually come to our head or in our mind is ChatGPT or similar kind of apps, because they are making conversation with us and helping us to do some work. But AI is not limited to ChatGPT and so on. Actually, we have different kind of tools or solutions, let's say, powered by AI to help us in our work. For example, the machine learning for the predictive analytics. So we can use the machine learning algorithm to process huge data sets, including the transaction histories. For example, if we download the transaction data from land registry, it can be huge. It can be downloaded for maybe a few minutes, and it takes another few minutes to open it. So it's huge data set. But a machine learning algorithm actually can help us to capture the inputted information and help us to analyze them together with the neighborhood demographic, for example, and economic indicators and local or neighborhood infrastructure development to create a more accurate valuation for the property. So this kind of model, for example, I'll just name a few like random forest and neural networks. They particularly are good at capturing this nonlinear relationship between different variables. So that actually help us to produce a more accurate valuation to reduce the market risk. And also time series analysis with the machine learning models can help us to make more accurate forecasting about market cycle, about rent rate trends, absorption rate, and etc. So these are one type of the solution. And coming to the next one is natural language processing application, which are actually, if we want to give an image to it, it'll be a ChatGPT and so on, the AI apps that the large language model apps that we are using, commonly used right now. So they can help us to do the document analysis and especially useful in due diligence. For example, they can just quickly analyze a lease agreement, regulatory filings, market reports, help us to identify the key information that we want to get and help us to analyze the potential risk and opportunities, for example. And this actually give us a much quicker working process, which is actually required for the due diligence process. And also, another good example or use would be the news and social media sentiment analysis, which actually help us to capture the sentiments on the market. This can be, of course, the analysis of huge data sets, and also this can be real-time monitoring of the news sources and social media platforms, help us to identify those emerging risks or opportunities in some market or in certain property sector. So that would be very helpful. And the third type I want to to take an example here would be the computer vision for property assessment. So we can actually use the AI-powered image analysis to monitor the property's condition, or if it's under construction, we can actually monitor the construction progress, neighborhood changes. So this actually help us to detect early maintenance needs or any environmental risk. So that is also very helpful. And in terms of the operational side, the automated property inspections apps actually can standardize the property condition assessment, help us to identify the structural issues, compliance violations, maintain requirements, and so on, so that it actually help us to do it in a quicker way and in a safer way compared to the human inspectors. And of course, there are so many softwares in geospatial area already. And with AI's help, actually, it can be even more advanced to help us to model, for example, the climate risk, to analyze the climate data, infrastructure resilience, to predict, for example, flood risk or the wildfire exposure and other climate-related threats to the property. And also it can help us to analyze the neighborhood features, for example, the greenness, the walkability, crime patterns, school quality. And again, that actually help us to make a more accurate property valuation and also help us to identify the preferences from the tenant as well. And with all this emergence of the smart buildings, for example, the sensors, combined with AI, actually, we can integrate with the Internet of Things facilities. So that will help us to monitor the property's conditions, again, in a very regular and accurate way, and also help us to understand, for example, energy usage, occupancy patterns. So that help us to predict the maintenance and operational optimizations. And it can be scaled up as well. The AI-powered system can help us to monitor the risk across the whole portfolio. So it can help us to identify the correlation and concentration of the risk that might not be very clear when we are looking at individual properties. But on the portfolio level with the AI-powered tool, we can do that. And having a look at all these AI solutions, then we might find out that sometimes we can actually use a few of them together to combine them. So we have also got some integrations of multimodal AI in our real usage. So all this modern AI system can help us to integrate the traditional financial metrics with the alternative data sources, for example, the satellite image, demographic trends, and social media sentiment to create a more comprehensive profile for the risk assessment. And this actually can help us to capture the risk that we cannot capture if we only use the quantitative model. And again, we mentioned that the real-time monitoring is actually very giving us a very visualized senses about the risk management for real estate. So we can have a look at in our demo. So here we come to the real content and example. I just want to give you a practical demonstration using one of the models. So we have introduced all these different solutions. The most commonly used one are still the large language models, for example, the ChatGPT. And actually, using this approach, we can actually do a lot of things within the remit of risk management. For example, we can have direct risk scoring if we want. We can have the assessment based on the reasoning, and we can integrate different materials from the different contexts. And also, we can ask AI to make some provide the explanations in a more transparent way to make it more explainable. So that's just get into the example here. Before getting into it, I just want to show you that I'm using a real property in Manchester. It's in city center. It's a very grand office building, a grade A office building, quite new, quite modern. So we selected this one because it's almost fully occupied with many tenant information as well. So I collect all this specific information, for example, the details of the property, its financial metrics, the tenant information, and some data about the market, for example, the local economic indicators, some comparable properties, and some other environmental related and climate risk related information as well. And I collected all this information from CoStar. I believe that in reality, in the real world, if you are doing no matter due diligence for acquiring a property or to assessing for a lender, for example, in this scenario, more information. What I have right now here are all public information that I can get. So just imagine if you can get more information on what a more comprehensive risk assessment you can do with AI. So here is on the right-hand side is what I hope AI can help us. So just imagine that we are a lender and we want to assess the default risk of this property across different scenarios with different level of loan to value ratio. For example, 50%, 65%, 75%, and 80%. So we hope the AI can help us to analyze the financial data through the traditional risk metrics, also extracting the risk insight and at least give us some ideas from this qualitative information, and also combining the factors and the materials with the market context, and also integrating the climate risk and environment consideration, and then produce a comprehensive risk assessment for each scenario at different loan to value ratio. So this is what we want the AI to do. And on top of that, I just hope to introduce that with this specific tool I'm using, it can also give us a more visualized and interactive presentation of the report. So based on what we usually have in a very traditional loan risk assessment, we have a few components here, for example, the financial, the property itself, the credit and experience, and etc. And then consider about the environment regulations, and then do some sensitivity analysis and stress testing. And here, with this AI tool, we can actually do very similar things, and we can make it very visualized. For example, we can have a different scoring and try to make it interactive, which means that if you change one of the factor, it can be changed as well. So let's just get into it and have a look at the show here. So right now here is the app I'm using. It's called Claude. So I'm using this app, but also if you haven't got the app downloaded in your computer, you can just go online in the browser. it's a quite similar, very same interface, I believe. So when you open it, it will be shown like this. And the very basic feature of Claude, which I like, is that you can actually teach it, or also you can give it context of what you want to do. That is called here project. So for this demo, I set up this project called risk assessment. So as I just said, we need to provide the context to the AI to make more accurate or more specific report or presentation for us. So I need to upload the details, the specification of the property and the different tenant information. And this Excel spreadsheet, one is about the market data, for example, market value, rent, and vacancy rate in Manchester, in Greater Manchester. And also I provide another one in that sub area, CityCare. It's called CityCare in Manchester. So I'll give them a little bit, I'll give the AI a little bit context from the market. And these are tenants information. And these are some comparables. For example, the same level, same standard of the office building nearby, so that the AI can understand what I'm looking at and in what market that it is. And actually, if I don't provide all this, but only give it a name, it can give you a very general risk assessment already, because it actually can go and search different informations. But without providing this context, it will be very general. It won't be very specific, and it won't be very accurate, let's say. That is why I prefer to give it a bit context to help AI to understand what I'm looking at and what I'm looking for. So in the first, because usually it takes a few minutes. Every time I put a prompt in, it will take a few minutes for the AI to analyze the context I'm providing and to give me the result. So I already put it here because we don't have too much time to wait for the AI to produce it. So my first prompt is quite simple. I just tell the AI to go look into the project knowledge where I uploaded all the files, and tell the AI what I put it there, and ask the AI to utilize all those documents to provide a risk assessment across different loan to value ratio scenarios, and give it a risk assessment. So here is the AI trying to show what he's been doing. And here, so after I provide prompts and the AI will start doing all this, usually it takes about 3 to 4 minutes, and it will generate something. And as you can see, it's because I upload a lot of documents, so it takes quite a while. And it says, do you want to continue? So I said, continue. And here, this part is the first draft of the report for risk assessment for the 1 St. Peter's Square in Manchester. As you can see, it gives us a executive summary, also gives us the risk assessment for different scenarios in a very brief way. Okay. And then start analyzing the key risk factors. Also give it score because we hope it to. So after analyzing all these risk factors, it also provides the scenario analysis and stress testing result in a template in a table format. And also it helps us to identify some mitigating factors, for example, try to help us to manage the risk or minimize the risk. As well, it will give us some ideas. And here is the composite risk assessment. So it will show the methodology for the score. So different score for different weightings for different factors and score for each factors, and then will give us a weighted average score, of course, here. And in different scenarios, it gives us different things, and then start doing the analysis and give us the recommendation according to its assessment. Of course, it wouldn't be perfect, but it gives us a basis to work on already in 3 or 4 minutes. So that is pretty good. But on top of that, I hope that they can also provide some insight on climate and environmental risk. So here is what they keep doing and start adjusting the report a little bit. So try to assess the energy efficiency and their performance and also the physical climate risk around that area, and also try to assess the extreme weather and etc. And have a look at the policy and regulation change to assess the transition risk. So these are the additional content that we are asking for the climate and environment risk. So this already is the foundation that we can use. And I just want to show you one more thing about what I like for Claude. Because on top of this project, it can also help us to build something very interactive and very visualized. So we just had that risk assessment report. And if we want to share it with our client or share it with our line manager or want to work together between colleagues, we can do that as well. So here we can ask Claude to make this risk assessment into a professional HTML document with the proper styling and navigation. So in this way, we have something on the right-hand side here. As you can see, the highlighting is more like a presentation already. It's already like a deck, isn't it? And here, they make it very visualized, executive summary, and you can tap on each tab to show you the risk. And they also analyze the tenant and help you to understand for each part of the risk and assess them as well. So if you scroll down for each category, it also has its analysis. So this is what I want to show. It's called artifact in Claude. And here, if you want to copy it out, you can do that. But if you want to work it with others, or if you just want to embed a link in your presentation, you can use this tab, publish. But you really need to be careful about it because that means that it will be open to public. So if it's confidential information, so better not to do it. But if you really, it's not, it's all public information and it's okay to be shared, then you can just publish it and copy the link in your presentation, then make your presentation more visualized. So it's easier for others to follow and to ask questions and to have a look. And also it makes it easier to update each data. Okay, so this is what I want to show in the demo. I understand it's really quick, but just try to remember this name, Claude. Let me go back to, yeah. So the interface is like this. Quite easy, quite simple, and there are more to that, of course, if you want to explore, and you can actually give it more functionality to your own use. Okay, so if we are back to what we are looking at, So it seems quite good, I'd say. And I think in future it may become better. So in future, the climate risk assessment through this large language models analysis, we can add more environmental reports and regulations, etc., to make it more comprehensive. And maybe one day we will have more specific apps for this specific risk so that we can use that kind of AI app for specific reason. So it will be much easier. And in terms of the policies, regulations, it's the same. And also, it will help us to analyze the market sentiment, industrial news, and etc., or the demographic and tenant risk factors, and etc. So these are the future imaginations that we are having in our mind. I believe that in very near future we can do it with different AI tools as well. But as I just mentioned, we need to be careful when we are using AI because it's not a developed app yet. It still needs a lot of considerations. For example, the technical architecture for integrating the AI tools to our traditional or our existing models. And also, we need to be aware of the data privacy and the model governance to make sure that the data are safe. And also, we need to think about how to explain the production or say the presentation that AI produced so that to make it more sensible and to make it more explainable to our client or to our boss. And also when we are trying to implement all these AI tools or the components to our work or to our jobs, we need to consider about cost and benefit to do some analysis to see whether it's worth doing it or not. So yes, this is pretty much I'm going to introduce today. Just give you a taster. And Philip, should I give it back to you? And thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you for your speech, Cherry. It was a pleasure to hear a bit of your experience in the topic. And for those who were here today, we offer the course AI application for real estate. And if you're interested in knowing more about how to use AI in your daily work, don't hesitate to reach us out and we will talk about it. So thank you, Sherry, again. See you next time, guys.
Yeah, thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.